This is a specimen of what's called a Wunderkammer, or Cabinet of Wonders, that's at the Getty Museum. A Wunderkammer is a medieval predecessor of a modern museum. So say during the 16th century, a Wunderkammer might have included things like plant and animal specimens, minerals, coins, religious relics, botanical prints, anatomical models, medical instruments. This is coming to mind because you are about to start on the magazine project, which, in addition to involving revisions of your work as separate pieces, it's also going to include a compositional strategy called juxtaposition that involves putting things next to each other and creating potentially useful and surprising connections and meaning-making opportunities. So I got these pictures from an exhibit I took at the university's Museum of Fine Art. This was a curated exhibit, and they talked about how those who had Wunderkammer would use their strategies for classifying and grouping items to make sense of their world. Now you are like a curator. You are putting together a selection of materials that you've revised, but you're not just going to stick them in a box. You're going to put them in places where they potentially speak to each other and create new opportunities for thinking about the positions and the arguments and the evidences that you put in your original pieces. An artist called Kiki Smith, in a retrospective exhibit, talked about how she liked to gather together disparate items, investigating the new relationships and possible meanings when things are assembled and juxtaposed. I took some photos of pieces of her art and made a little Wunderkammer of my own. So in your magazine, you and your group are curators, and you are mounting an exhibition of your work. Here's an example of kind of what I'm talking about. This is a little screencast I made of the Room for Debate page on the New York Times. So this is an issue, as you may know, this feature of the New York Times takes a particular issue that's of concern to people and examines various positions, i.e. room for debate. And what they do is have several people write, but I wanted you to look at the way that they're juxtaposed. So, for instance, on the front page of this particular issue, they had the pictures of the various people that wrote. But when you click on one, you can move through their debates in this way by seeing how they follow each other and juxtapose. And the editors have also created discussions of related issues in order to, again, juxtapose this issue with others that are similar. Here's an example of a magazine that my class from last semester put together, and I just wanted you to see it. They started with the idea of the many faces of humanity, as you can see. And I'm going to click through some of the parts of their magazine. They organized it basically by genre, so you can see that that's sort of a sort of straightforward way of taking my assignment and translating it into an organization for the magazine. I thought they did a beautiful job of it. I'm going to say also, though, that it might have been interesting to, rather than organize by genre, to organize by some other principle, like, for instance, pieces of advocacy or investigations, or perhaps some of the issues were related to each other. So there's more than one way to think about organizing the magazine, and what I would like you to do is think of it as curating a collection of the group's work and organizing the exhibit in a way that will be interesting to the reader of the magazine. So that's just a little picture out of a magazine that I thought did a good job. So potentially you can think of this magazine as using art terms. It's an assemblage, that is, you're taking found artifacts and putting them together in a way, an artful way that is provocative and interesting. It's like a collage in a way. I don't necessarily want you to make a collage, but think of collage as a metaphor that might work. It's an interpreted collection of your work, much like going to a museum where you'll find signs that offer background and interesting information to help you contextualize the work. And it's an act of intentional curation. So Walter Benjamin, who was a literary critic, talked about, he wrote an essay called Unpacking My Library. And maybe that's another metaphor you could use for thinking about your own project. He said, join me among the piles of volumes, seeing daylight again after 2 years of darkness. Maybe you wish you could have 2 years of darkness at this point for thinking about the material that you've written in this course and so forth. But the invitation is for now to unpack the library of works that you have created and to put them on a new set of shelves. When you put those books next to each other, what are they going to say to each other? What will they say to a reader? And what new connections will they invite for the reader to discover?